Hi, I'm odeean, and today I'm going to be having a look at Bandai's Soul of Chogokin GX-54 Toby Cage with Kuru Jishi. The box is pretty standard stuff, just pictures of the actual toy. On the back, more pictures of the actual toy showing various features, but a little bit of a painting style piece of artwork on the side, and that's pretty cool. The box itself is about half the size of one of the bigger Soul of Chogokins, like the other guys I've been reviewing, God Mars, etc. Let's get to the toy itself. Here we've got the Kuru Jishi figure himself, and I'm guessing for most people this is going to be the main event in the box, but I will get to the Toby Cage figure as well. I find it pretty hard to say Kuru Jishi, so maybe I won't say it that many more times, and I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. I haven't seen the anime of this yet, and I can't wait to do it. It's on my list of things to see, but as far as backstory goes, I don't know anything, but still, even without any story to go by, this is a really cool figure to have. The figure has a nice degree of heft, quite a bit of die cast, but they've really picked good places to put it that don't interfere with playing with the toy. So we've got these big units down here, the feet, with a really nice sculpt on the underside. They're die cast feet. We've got these kind of arm guards which turn into the front paws in the lion mode. These are die cast, and this very large back section here that goes all the way around to the groin here, that's die cast as well, nice and cold to the touch. Apart from that, he's got a number of die cast pieces that form a kind of skeleton for him, including ratcheted shoulder ratchets, which is really nice. I love it the way Bandai put these toothed pieces of metal to form shoulder ratchets. Seems like it's very durable. It's got a nice feel when you play with it. The paint details are nice and crisp and perfectly applied. So you can see on the side of the head there's that little stripe of red that's in some indent, and then he's got the blue eyes and black panel lines between the eyes and the face guard. We've got black paint and silver paint on the shoulder area here, as well as this black, red and silver on the top here. So numerous paint apps, and all of them done really, really well. Even differences in single colors. So we've got glossy paint in the grooves here, but a nice matte paint on this textured detailing here. Typically it's pretty hard to do yellow paints, but as you can see on the foot area here, the paint has been applied pretty perfectly. I can't find any fault with it. There are no little bubbles, no swirls, no scratches, no parts where the undercolor shows through. So a fantastic job in the paintwork on this figure. At first glance, it seems that there isn't that much paint because there's so much yellow plastic that it gives the illusion that the figure is just molded, but really there is quite a bit of paint on this guy. Posability wise, he is highly posable. So as I mentioned before, we've got the ratchets in the shoulder. Apart from that, we have this forward shrug, which is left over from transformation. We've got a swivel under the bicep, and it's hard to grab, but a swivel above the bicep, the bicep. We've got this in and out at the shoulder here, 90 degrees at the elbow, ball joints on the wrist. The head is on a somewhat limited ball joint. At the hip, we've got another shrugging kind of motion, which is also from transformation. One thing to note though, that when you do that, it does rub against the die cast section. So I haven't had any scratches yet, but it's probably not a good idea to do that too much. This backwards and forwards at the hip, as well as a bit of in and out. This joint is really, really stiff. I've seen it mentioned in pretty much every review for this guy that this joint is very, very stiff, and I must admit over time and play it has become looser, and it may seem like I'm moving that quite easily, but I'm actually applying a lot of force, and when it was new from the box, the force that I had to apply to move that was so great that It seemed like it may break it, but it hasn't broken it. It's proved to be pretty durable. Then moving down to the knee, we get one of the most satisfying joints. If you can hear the sound of this. Let me put that a bit closer to the mic and listen. Beautiful clicky ratchets in the knee. Clearly there's metal in that ratchet. You can hear the little ping, ping, ping as it turns. That's a great, great knee joint, as well as a swivel above the thigh here. When we get down to the foot, it's a little bit weird, the jointage of it, but we get a little jiggle from side to side just from flexing, but also pivoted up and down. And that's about it, as long as you don't count these things. But that's about it for main posability. Oh, hang on. One more thing. If you want to count the ability of the tail to move when you untab it from being up the top, that is also posability, I guess. For a size comparison in robot mode, here we've got a Takara reissue Razor Claw from the Predacons. I thought I'd show this guy, and another lion, another shiny yellow guy, and I really like the paint job on this, by the way. That's really fantastic. But pretty similar in size. Of course, this guy looks about 100 times better with all his posability and better proportions, but these guys could be buddies. The next comparison with GX-54 is this Soul of Chogokin GX-56. I can't remember his actual name. It's another difficult name to say, but the reason this makes a good comparison is because these are from the same show, so hopefully they're pretty closely scaled. But you can see here that this panel at the front, this actually is supposed to look like Toby Cage's chest, so this guy can go inside of this guy, which I will show when I review the GX-56 set, but you can see there really matches up, and these two look really fantastic together. Kurojishi here comes with a number of weapons, so I'll show my favourite one first. Let me get it out. We get this lightsaber-like weapon. Now it really looks like a clear energy beam, and we've got this nice little section here. To get it into the fist, you need to have one of his grasping fists on, and you just poke it through. So that fist it's pretty solid the way it grabs hold of things. If I can just focus on it, there we go. It grabs onto it tightly, but it's very flexible, so the fingers can bend way open like this. I know that's hard to see, but it can accommodate anything. You just have to push it hard enough to get it through. The next weapon is this very long sword. I'm tempted to call it a katana, but it seems even longer than that. And this would go well with other figures, so it's very versatile. It's flexible enough to not break, but it's not made out of gummy plastic like something from Hasbro. Like I'm thinking of Bludgeon. So his sword is gummy, and if you put it sideways, it has a tendency to permanently bend until you heat it up and reform it. This doesn't feel like that. It feels like it will always, like gravity will pull on it, but it's going to spring back to its original shape. It's also quite sharp, especially in the point. The point is actually pointy, not just toy pointy. It's actually pointy. So that's really cool. On top of those melee weapons, we get this huge cannon. I can't wait to see this in the show. I mean, this looks pretty powerful. It spins around like a Gatling cannon. It's got a little bit on the top that can pull up. Now, for him to hold this is quite difficult. You have to get one of the grasping hands like this, and it doesn't want to go around the handle. It's just very awkwardly placed. So what I like to do is get a screwdriver. It's pretty hard to show this on camera, doing too many things at the same time. I will attempt to. I just pry open the fingers like this, and you can see that now I've got the hand around the handle. So it's actually even harder to get that off. Getting it on is pretty straightforward, bend the fingers out, but to get it off without scratching the paint severely on the hand is pretty difficult. I did the other side off camera just because it's a bit of a pain. Once you've got the two hands on, you just pop them into their joints here. Now he has a bit of difficulty getting into a spot where he can hold this. You really have to rotate those shoulders forward. And I think that's, I don't know if that was, it must have been intentional. A lot of thought has to go into Soul of Chogokin, but if he couldn't rotate his shoulders forward like what he does in Transformation, there's no way he could hold on to that gun successfully. So that's pretty cool looking, pretty big. I mean, I don't think I'm going to permanently pose him this way or anything. So he looks like he's straining to lift something a little bit too heavy, but still powerful looking. We also get these kind of gesturing hands. So it's kind of, I don't know, it wasn't me. Kind of humorous gesturing hands. I can't see much else used for those. They're not good for slapping a sword like that, like some of the other SOCs, because the little finger bends down too much. But, you know, not too bad. The other component in this set is the Toby Cage figure. And he's quite small, so if I grab my ruler here, you can see that toe to head is 9 centimeters, so it's pretty tiny figure, but it is done very well. This is done better than most action figures that I've got, which are bigger than this. As just a little bit of scale. Here's that Robocop I had the other day, so he's not even as tall as the leg on a NECA Robocop, but done much better than Robocop. All the little details on this guy are crisp. The sculpting is crisp. The painting is very crisp. There's no imperfections in the paint. It's all got good coverage, no splotches, no little strands going off anywhere. It's kind of high end. I mean, it is a Soul of Chogokin, but you would think the smaller they get, the more difficult there would be, but it's been pulled off quite exquisitely. So there's little tabs even under his skirt. So if you want the skirt to move up for posing, it can do this, but if you want it to stay flat, it tabs down. On the sides of the legs, these little fins can pull out like this and reveal some tiny little missiles. I think they're missiles, could be a little gun, I'm not sure. The face up here, these guards at the side of the head are flexible plastic, so if you want to turn further than they should go so it bumps into the side, you can see that they just bend over and doesn't do any permanent damage, whereas if they were hard it would probably snap off. So the head is on a nice little ball joint here. These can move. The shoulders, ball joints, double jointed elbow, although it does look ugly the way that it's cut, swivel at the bicep, ball joints at the hips. There's a double jointed knee, but it's not a double joint in a sort of traditional sense. For transformation of this guy, gap is needed. So you can see there when I extend that out that the gap becomes visible. But if you don't like that, you can keep it in and rotate it here and above. But it's kind of a bit unnatural. You've got to hold it securely to access that movement, which can be a little bit of a pain. I tend not to bother. The ankles are also on little ball joints like this. it can do that. That's part of transformation, but that's kind of counts for a little bit of posability too, I guess. So he comes with a number of weapons. Tobicage's first weapon is this ordinary sword. Again, quite pointy. His second weapon is the same sword with a dagger attachment coming out of the handle, so you can backwards stab someone. And I think it's supposed to be representative of just an option on the first sword, not a totally separate thing. The next weapon is this laser rifle, and you can see I've also popped on one of the alternate hands there to help him grasp the barrel. It matches well with his body, the paint and the shape of this gun back here. It looks pretty cool. We also get this bow attachment which slides over the top of the laser rifle, so it's actually two pieces, and on one side we've got a handle so that you can grab it with two hands in a secure fashion if you use both the grasping hands. It's also very, very pointy. This is the most pointy part of the whole set up here, and you've got to be careful of these because if this snags on something the wrong way, it'll probably snap off. There's another rifle type weapon, and you can see this one can accept the sword into the top. It holds it, so that's fully detachable. It just comes off like that. And for some reason we get another one of the same thing exactly, except with this little peg at the side. So I'm not really sure where that peg is supposed to peg into. It's a little ball joint. We do have other hands like this, but there isn't a place for that peg to peg into in this fist. I'm going to get to the transformation now. So in order to transform this guy, what we need to do is untab this panel at the back and move it down. Close up the feet like this. Untab the arms and swing them around to the back. It's best to have the clenched fists on for this, so the arms have to sort of position like that, and the leg will bend all the way up like here. And you can see that that fist kind of snugly fits in that spot. Now I shouldn't say snugly because the whole thing doesn't really tab in any way. It just curls up into a ball, and you've got to approximate where everything goes. But if you just fiddle with it a little bit, it kind of shrinks down in size a bit, which is what we want. So that's about it. I mean, very unnatural. No human being would do that. But this is going to go into the belly of the lion. The transformation for this guy is pretty cool, although it's not really like a transformer where you find definite locking points where you expect things to stay. It's kind of more like it's a bit of a mystery to get things into the exact right balanced spot. It's best to do this with the closed fists as well. So anyway, let's get to it. Push the head down, move these shoulders like this. We're going to put the arms up and move these paws out. They go over the little fists. Next, we want to grab this section here, like the torso, and just bend it all the way up. Kind of reaches a bit of a locking point there. On the underside, we want to get this head and just push it up as far as it will go, like that, and leave this panel open. Grab this little bit and leave it open as well, like this. Now, these are going to bend like that, and as they do, this gap closes. So you can see in robot mode, there's a gap in the side here. It's a little bit weird actually, and if you pry at it, it can get wider. But in the lion mode, that gap can close up. Extend these feet down like that, just to unlock this section. Move this up. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. We want to rotate this thing around while moving the whole thigh down like this. The toe can come out, although it's quite difficult to grab a hold of. So once it's out like that, bend it all the way forward. And that's kind of how we want the lion's leg to be. But we've got to get rid of this section. So those little fins we want to be on the back, like this, and the foot to be on the top. there's nothing really locking this in, so you can play with it a little bit to get it how you like it, but it's not really tabbed in, so to speak. It just sort of, it finds a good spot and stays there, and that's kind of what it's meant to look like. There, that's starting to look pretty good. Okay, now this horn on the front here, we bend this back like that. Now it's untabbed again. Now we want to get our little rolled up ball Toby Cage and get him into the belly of the beast. So this is quite a hard prospect, and there's not much I can say that will explain what I'm doing. It just takes trial and error, and it's quite unfortunate, but the act of getting him in there tends to wreck the figure. Like little bits pop off. It's very prone to losing little bits of detail, and if they fly across the room and you have carpet or something and you didn't notice it, Toby Cage is going to be missing his fins or his knee guard or whatever by the time you're finished. And it's not easy. I mean, I think I've done it. That's it. Listen for rattles. There's no rattles, so I don't think he's lost anything. Then these can just bend up, kind of help him lock in. And this panel can bend down over his face. This panel can bend up over his groin area, and that's how he forms the stomach. I'm very pleased with the lion mode, and everyone's referring to it as a lion mode, but honestly it hardly looks like a lion at all. You can see there his mouth's open. You can close that if you want. It's got this nice little guard that can go over it, poseable guns on the front. To me it looks more like some kind of dragon, but I guess his robot head looks kind of lionish. Probably the only real issue with this figure in beast mode is that he's got a very low profile. So if you look down on it like we are now, it kind of, you can lose the face. So this camera is really close. That's one of the reasons this part is standing out. But when you have a more like when you stick him on the shelf, often all you'll see is this kind of thing, the top of his head. You can't see his eyes, you can't see his mouth, you just see some shoulders and the top of the head, and it can be disappointing that such a great figure doesn't display well. And it's because he's got a kind of, he's bending forward and looking towards the ground stance, and there's nothing you can do about that. The best remedy, I guess, for that would be to put it up on a tall shelf. Often when you see pictures of this guy or advertising material, the pictures will be taken from down lower so you can get a more impressive view of his face, and that's fine for pictures, but the reality of the figure is that you don't get to see that look much. I guess you could stand him up on something, but then it just looks a little bit weird. The weapons that we saw before can go into this guy's mouth. Here he is holding the sword from before, and you can see that's pretty solid. So even with his mouth open like this, he can hold on to the sword, and that's because the sword has a lock-in point, but like right there. But even if you don't want to use that lock-in point, it has a kind of snappiness to it that will just hold it in there securely, even without tabbing it in. The other weapon doesn't have that lock-in point, but as I mentioned, that kind of snappiness of the jaw lets him hold on to it still. And thankfully, because the lightsaber is my favourite of the two swords. For scale in lion mode, here we've got him next to Razor Claw again. So he actually comes across as being bigger once he's transformed, whereas before he seemed pretty similarly sized. Here he is next to Leo Convoy. This is just a dirty old toy I got second-hand off eBay, but still. More lion bots. And finally, again, the GX-56, I think it is. Dragon mode these guys look really great together. And there's a third one, the GX-55, which I don't have yet. I'm really weighing up whether I should get that just to complete the 3. But these 2 alone, I'm super pleased with these. My final thoughts on the GX-54. I think this is a great figure. It's a different kind of theme to some of the bigger Soul of Chogokins that I've been looking at lately, because they're mainly combining robots, whereas this is kind of a standalone robot. But I like the pattern. I like the fact that the little guy balls up inside and he's cross-compatible with the other figures. It's interesting, and the design, particularly of this lion, I find to be really nice. I've always been pretty partial to lion transformers, and this is a natural kind of progression from liking lion bots in Transformers to liking lion bots in other places. So one of the things this has done for me is it's sort of kindled my interest in how do you say it, Daltanius. I haven't got that one yet, and it's quite expensive, but he has a lion component as well, so I'm kind of starting to look at getting that figure just because of my enjoyment of this guy. The set definitely does have some flaws, and they're almost entirely centered around the Toby Cage figure, and I did mention how awesome he is. He's awesome as a standalone figure, but his ability to turn into that ball to go inside is not very good. There are little flaps, like these little fins at the side, and even his whole arm detaches at the bicep, and it's just his kneecaps. Bits of him pop off all over the place, and I don't care for it. I would have been happier, I think, if they had provided a blank to go in, so I could choose not to do that. But with this particular set, there was no blank. The Kuru Jishi component of the set I would rate as maybe 85 out of 100, and I love the looks, I love the posability, but these bits at the back don't seem to have definite positions, which can be annoying when I'm trying to transform it. And it's not that they don't look good, but that little bit of annoyance takes away from the set a little bit. The accessory count is acceptable, especially for such a small set. It's not one of these huge boxes where you get tray after tray, but he's quite adequate when it comes to accessories, and the execution of all the details is fantastic. My only unhappiness really is that I paid too much. So this guy was available for quite a long time at $80 or $90, and I kept passing him up to get other things, and in the end when I bought it I had to pay $130, which was more than I wanted to pay for this. But that's kind of always the way, paying more than you want to pay. I've learned my lesson, and these days I kind of get things straight away, but I just wish that I had taken one of those opportunities to buy this at $80 last year. One thing that kind of amuses me is that this guy kind of out Transformers. So I always was kind of fond of the Transformers Cybertron Leo Breaker mold, but this guy is kind of like that in a few ways, except better. So he pulls it off with more articulation, with better lines and less kind of dead areas that don't move. So in a way, this guy could easily be a Transformer. It's kind of, he's just overdone, done too good to be a Transformer. And this is the way I like my robots, looking good both ways, nice and clicky, nice and solid, all round good toy. So if you like what you've seen in this video, definitely go out and pick one up. They're still within the realms of possibility of getting. Quite a few go on eBay all the time. Prices fluctuate a little bit. I mentioned I got this for $130, but the normal price I think now is about $150 or $160. Anyway, this has been my video review for the GX-54 Soul of Chogokin from Bandai. I'm Odeean. Thanks for watching.